Oh, I was hoping we were going to do a sound check for me. I had something all written out and everything.
Yeah, you don't.
No, let's hear it.
Yeah, let's do it. Do it right now.
What are the other gentlemen's names?
We have. Well, let's just go down the list then. We got AA Ron.
Yeah, that's me.
We have Travis.
What up?
We got our Frasley.
Hello.
Okay.
We have Secretly Norco.
Fantastic.
I've got a Josh.
Okay.
All right, Josh, do your sound check then.
Oh, you want to do my sound check?
Yeah, now you want to do it.
Yeah, read your monologue.
A passing vehicle inspection is required to obtain registration. Your vehicle inspection status will be verified electronically.
Yeah,
Please go to twostep1sticker.com for more information to renew online.
We're not sponsors, but pay for our show. No, they're great. So, today on our show, it's such a treat for me. We have a buddy of mine named Randy. I don't want to give out your full name. I'll let you do all that. But when I first met him, he was doing a magic trick with rubber bands. It was really cool. And then I found out that this guy who also played Ronald McDonald when we were all kids. Sorry, I don't mean to exploit your age or anything. And, he's also like a hardcore magician, and he's met many people. So I asked if he can come on the show. He said yes, and so we finally got together. And so here we go. And we have questions, and we have just tons of stuff. So I apologize ahead of time if we're just gonna, bombard you with all this stuff, buddy.
I'm willing to take any questions you can ask.
All right, I'll set the tone.
Well,
so
hold on, let's get before we start. Hey, let's get him to say his thing. We need to know all about him and all that stuff. So let's go with that first.
That's what I was going to ask him. Jesus Christ,
all right.
What's your full name? What do? You do magic? Is the paint expensive? Do you wear a wig? We're gonna. He's gonna.
Yes to all of those. No. So my full name is just Randy Kalin, and I am a magician, a longtime magician. I believe it or not, I went to school to become an accountant, and but I've always done magic since I was 16. I worked at Six Flags. Eventually, from the magic shop, I did some strolling magic throughout the park, and eventually got my own illusion show. From that, I traveled the country doing magic, promoting different companies' products. And what happened was McDonald's saw that and was looking for somebody to be able to bring more magic to the Ronald McDonald program. And although they had some people involved with magic, the regional people just didn't do any. And when they contacted me, I thought they were crazy. Because I thought, why would an accountant want to be, magic? And I said, is this real? I didn't really know much about Ronald at the time. But I thought I could make some side money. And after doing that just occasionally, they made me an offer. And my mindset changed that I would always wonder what would happen if I didn't take the job. So I did fearfully take the job. And there were so many things that I was told I couldn't do and couldn't say because they wanted to keep Ronald protected. And at the time, and until Ronald was eliminated, we had probably still do have a secrecy agreement, but I don't care as much about it. But we were not allowed to tell anybody who I was, what I did. But it was partially about a protective of me too, because there are kooks out there. But I became and lived Ronald. I loved it. It's not a job for everyone, but I did Ronald for 30 years.
Oh,
Wow.
Actually, probably more like 35, to be honest.
Wow.
So, let's open up questions.
Hey, Ron has his interviewing chain on.
That's right.
Yeah. So, let's start off with Ron. What you got, buddy?
My question?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess softball question. Were you just in commercials, or were you just making appearances?
I did both. I did commercials both as myself, and I did commercials as Ronald locally. All the local and regional commercials were me. If you ever saw Ronald in some of the magazines related to Ronald McDonald House, many of those were me. And locally, there was a magazine, still is, Ladue News and Town and Country. I was probably the cover of that at least once a year, every year for about 10 years.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Well, you and Frazzy would get along. He went to clown college. Seriously, he did.
Yeah. Not clown college, but I did go to clown camp.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that's actually really
The Barnum and Bailey one?
Community college then?
No,
Do you know Toto Johnson?
oh no, this was more of a local one that was being put on, but it was fun seeing the art of clown, and like they even had like puppetry, so it was more than just clowns, but it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Believe it or not, most of and from the clown college that a lot of people are trained of that get involved with, or did get involved with Barnum and Bailey and all those other things, their faces were actually trademarked and became theirs so that nobody would ever replicate them.
Wow. Wow.
Kind of interesting. Most people aren't aware of that. And although they might have had some modifications, if you ever go to Hallmark and you occasionally see like little statuettes from Ron Lee, and you see these, they got like a marble base, and they're just a beautiful little glazed clown that's about a foot high. There's many different images of those. Those are all actually real clowns, and many of those are friends of mine.
No way. That's cool.
Yeah, most people don't realize. They just think it's a clown image, but those are actually real people.
Wow. I like that.
It's pretty cool.
Anybody else have another question before I get to the listeners?
I have one. Were you involved in the animated series that the McDonald's did for about like 6 episodes with the Klasky Stupo of Rugrats?
Ed DeVoe made those. Yeah, they were like the Rugrats, but they were Ronald McDonaldized.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman that actually had done, who was a field Ronald. They have a guy that did nothing but national commercials. And usually, I do not know why, McDonald's National never wanted the guy. They called us Field Ronald that would make appearances, but they didn't want those people to be doing the national commercials. And one of the reasons, I believe, was simply because oftentimes when they were ready to do it, they would want them in a pinch and say, hey, we need to go X, Y, Z and do it. And if you were doing shows, whether it be at schools, parades, making an appearance for something regionally or locally, you would have to cancel out because it's not like you can get somebody to sub for you. So they had one guy that just did that. And the guy that did those in those videos that turned from a person, there was like a 2-minute little bit that he did, and then he became a cartoon and became those. I believe like those were cartoons from remember the DeVoe music group?
Yeah.
They created those, I believe. And there was, you said 6. Yeah, there was Ronald, The Legend of Grimace Island, Ronald McDonald and Loch Ness Monster, which never was, although I think you can get it now, it was never on sale at the stores. And the reason being, it was right when DVDs were coming into play, and those were all VHSs. And they had Birthday World, Ronald in Outer Space, so they had all those things. And I wasn't directly involved with those, but I think I still have a couple of sets of those. So, yeah.
That's cool. So you got a lot of memorabilia in your basement, I guess.
I have, yes, I have about 25 years of Happy Meal toys from every Happy Meal that ever came out.
Wow.
And although I don't have them all displayed, I do have many of them. I have a second bedroom, and not just Happy Meal toys, but also specialty items. Like they had Barbies that had Ronald McDonald Happy Meals on them, and they have some strange puzzles and stuff, and they have glass dishes that had representative of the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. Well, not the 30s, they were not there. 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I think there was 6 of them all together, and they just had little cartoon-esque images from those decades with McDonald's involved in each and every one of those. So I have those, and
about the McDonald's boat before it got decommissioned.
by these guys
everyone,
downtown on the next to the Admiral.
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing. They had that. I do not know why, but the city made it very difficult for that boat to stay. The owner was very involved and stuff and tried to do everything he could to help in the community. But when they were putting the riverboat up there, the Admiral changed it to a gambling boat, and they had the Robert E. Lee and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's, it was far enough down. They had a particular placement, I guess a licensed area they could be, but they would put the big balloon Ronald up there just to draw attention. And the city kept telling them that if you keep doing that, we're going to fine you. And they were not friendly to them at all. And eventually they said, it was crazy. Most of the time that I spent on there, I probably visited every store in the regional area. There's like 160 stores, but I did go outside of St. Louis. I went to various places for various reasons. But when they did that, I would go on the 4th of July at the VP Fair, and we would always bring many children from Children's Hospital to be able to get a bird's eye view of the fireworks. And they would provide them with some specialty gifts and, of course, all the food they could eat and their families. And Ronald would come there all the time and sign autographs, do some magic for them just before the fireworks display and meet with them. And it was kind of a cool thing.
Did you ever show up at an event where there's your competition's little mascot there, like the Burger King? I was gonna see if you beat the shit out of them.
No, actually,
maybe Jared.
We had
beat the fuck out of
He's taking a beating now. Anyway.
No, pedophiles ruined all this shit for mall Santas and Ronald McDonald. They didn't touch anybody with these fuckers. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, not at all. It's interesting. We had a policy that we would never be competitive. We just wouldn't deal it. With most cases, many of those people wanted to come to us. I mean, I would never, ever be rude. There was a lot of clowns. I knew a lot of local clowns. You said, like, you went to a local clown camp, and there were many that would go to parades and festivals and do things. And some of them, out of respect, would say, we try to stay away from you so that, we wouldn't offend you. And I said, you're never offending me. I go, and they go, we thought we weren't supposed to be near you. And I said, no. I go, it was interesting because the only time I didn't want people to be near me is when I would be performing a show. And
we got a diva.
Well,
so you're like you're like the Wayne Gretzky of all that little group.
No,
but Ronald. Come on.
Think about it logically. It would be like even if you guys were doing this broadcast at a particular area, you wouldn't want some juggler right next to you doing it while you're trying to interview somebody. Mm-hmm, you want your attention focused on the person you're doing it. So if I've got about 60 or 100 or 200 kids and I'm performing, I wouldn't want another character or a juggler right next to me performing, distracting the kids as it is, especially in the heat. You're trying to entertain them. And it was simply that. It wasn't, you're trying to do the best possible show.
It was your professional courtesy and stuff, yeah.
Yes. I mean, like a lot of times people say, well, I didn't think we were supposed to pass things out. I said, no. You know what? If you want to give them something or do something, I don't have problems with any of that. And Hamburglar and Grimace and other places, I always welcome them and the other characters. I would even go out of my way to shake them and get pictures with them and stuff. But I said, I do not want balloons handed to the kids before the show, because if they are, they're holding them, and then they're people behind them can't see, and then they get aggravated. Mm-hmm. And if you with little kids, if you gave them drinks, especially if they didn't have lids on them, kids would always spill them. So I was just thinking of making it as easy and safe for the kids so that they don't make a mess and they don't get upset because they get wet. They oftentimes cry and it's distracting. You just want the best possible show. I really never looked at it as being a diva, although I guess you could say that. It was just trying to provide the best entertainment you could. And I don't think anybody, I don't care whether it's Wayne Gretzky or anybody else, if you're doing something, and there being an interview, you want the attention focused on your situation, that your element that you're dealing with, not being distracted by multiple things going on simultaneously.
Definitely.
Well said.
All right. So here's some questions we got from some of the listeners. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Mike_Mike asks, is the statue at the statues that used to be sitting on the benches at Walmart, was that you?
You know what? Those were kind of generic statues. I wouldn't say that those represented anybody, but although you wouldn't notice anything different, I would notice things different. Over the years, the makeup changed subtly. So here gets something kind of interesting, because although there were a number of us around the world that played, and I'm very good friends with many of them. The guys in New Zealand and Australia, I actually just spoke to them a couple days ago. They're very dear friends. They've stayed at my house. We've gone to Disney together and some other places. But it's a very small family of characters around the world that do this. And we've gotten close because usually every other year, McDonald's took it serious enough that they would get us together and we would have to get in makeup and meet a certain standard. And if you didn't meet the appropriate standard, let me say it this way. Say you started looking like a banana peel with a potato inside. If you didn't look appropriate, they would say, if you can't get yourself looking like the Ronald that, you should be, this may not be the job for you. And a lot of people, you can call it discrimination or anything else. They were just trying to create an image. Ronald was a character, an image, and we tried to make it as real as much as possible. And I say that in years ago when things were less technologically advanced, if Ronald was going to be in the New York Macy's Day Parade, at that particular time around the country, they wouldn't allow anybody else around the world to make an appearance at that exact time.
That makes sense, yeah.
As time went by, say Ronald would be in the Chicago thing, and we might have been in the Christmas parade on Thanksgiving here and stuff. If anybody said, well, I saw him in both places at the same time, you could easily justify it by saying, well, there was a time delay, there was transfer or whatever. Or they always have an hour thing. Yeah. so yes. And although you can use the magic thing too, they tried to be able to justify it to the best of their ability. They tried to create the image that there was one Ronald, and not that they were trying to create fools out of anybody. They just wanted to create a reality for the character that it was. But I will tell you, when the social medias came out, Facebook and all the other images that came, and people would start posting, this is me with Ronald, this is that. I know the people directly involved with marketing were very fearful that everybody would say, oh my gosh, look at all the different Ronalds. And although if I look at different people that were portraying at different areas of the country or the world, and I would probably be able to tell you who they were, I never heard anybody else give it a second thought. Ronald was Ronald, and the nuances nobody thought much about.
Well, even in the newer commercials, they kind of stopped. They kind of pulled away from Ronald McDonald in the more later commercials, but like recently. But every once in a while, you'll see Ronald, and he doesn't seem the same anymore. There's something different about him now.
Ronald doesn't exist anymore per se. They're still owned by the characters, but that's why you don't see Ronald in the field anymore. They eliminated Ronald about 2 years ago.
Okay, and, that was about the last time I kind of saw a commercial in like a whole year span where you kind of see him going, "Hi, everybody," and that was it.
The owners around the country knew nothing about it, and they were very upset about it. But this was strictly a national decision. I can tell you, to the best of my ability, especially the owners in St. Louis and the people associated with the Ronald McDonald House, they could not have been more genuinely supportive of myself and the things that they did, and they always wanted to do what they could for the community. I know some people say they don't do this or they don't do that. We have a number of great owners in the metropolitan area, and that includes, Illinois in many areas. And the owners
that includes Illinois, even though everyone's moving out.
Yeah.
Well, I say that because I think Illinois gets a bad rap in many cases, but the owners there went out of their way to, if there was a disaster. I remember many years ago, you probably remember, I think it was, I want to say Versailles, the big 100-year flood, and there was a city, Versailles. Versailles. It totally flooded, and it had done that a couple of years in a row, and they basically told them, you know what, we're not going to rebuild you unless you want to build another thing. And they rebuilt the complete city about 10 miles down the road, I believe, but it's on an upper plane. But McDonald's helped sponsor, food, and in some cases, counselors and education they needed to be able to treat those kids. I mean, they just did a lot for those communities and other places. And many times those were all paid out of the owners' pockets. And of course, they did it from the money they received from the sales from the stores. But they were very community-oriented owners. So
that's cool. I like that kind of stuff. All right, so this one I want to really talk about because this one's a little rough. This one is from Smiley's Shrooms. She says, did you ever go to the elementary schools? My school had a Ronald McDonald. She went to Graham Elementary School in North County.
Okay, I did. Now I assume within the past 30 years that most of those things there is me. There is always a couple of exceptions, but I would say 99% of the times I actually had a number of different shows on reducing, reusing, cycling, on having a can-do attitude, on learning to use the library, on having self-esteem, and we used magic, puppets, and games to send messages in a positive way. And each show was about 30 to 45 minutes, and many of the schools didn't want the shows to go beyond 30 minutes, but some of them were as long as you want. So, I found that we didn't really have that principle. That was always a concern, but our shows had enough songs, and it sounds silly, but when you do as many shows as you do, you start to learn to relate to the kids and do stuff. And I found that by getting the kids directly involved, saying, hey, everybody applaud, move your fingers, do this. And when you get them engaged, they didn't tend to get distracted. No. And we tried to use things to be able to send messages so the teachers would enjoy it too. Because I know the teachers are sitting there and they're bored. We always try to have some fun things that the teachers get a kick out of. And being that many of the Ronalds in different states and countries had their different skills. Maybe some were more musicians, maybe some were jugglers and stuff. I was definitely magic. And as you said, Paulie saw my rubber bands. I always carry a few things with me, but I would do things that not only the kids would be involved. I had 5 shows today, ironically, and stuff. And
you carry those rubber bands just around even when you're not doing.
I do. You're
doing that to pick up chicks.
Hey, it works.
Yeah. Like, come here. Let me show you something.
What's that behind your ear?
Well, it's funny.
You try to do stuff for them to enjoy. It's just, it's all about creating a sense
Yeah,
of
they
wonder.
will.
What's that behind your ear? Oh, it's a date with me. Fantastic.
I love it. Now, I know Ronald McDonald came to mine, which was Townsend Elementary School, but I got in trouble and was kicked out.
Imagine
of the,
that.
Yeah, got kicked out, and I was in the hallway while Ronald was doing all this stuff, and I was trying to hear it. Yeah,
Oh my
that was
God.
fun. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Actually, I have a question.
Yes.
If I had a 401k, I wanted to take some money out and invest it, in some kind of like commodities or stocks or bonds or something. What forms would I need to fill out for that?
Well, you'd have to get. I'll leave that with you. But you know what?
He's not really an accountant.
He's
But I'll tell you, depending on your age, you definitely would want some mutual funds and stuff. And I would go with the Roth IRAs as opposed to the traditionals because the interest on those would be they grow non-taxable. And although you end up paying for it up front, you never pay for the growth of it again. And it's to your benefit in the long term.
Well, there we
I think
go.
you should-
Sweet. I
think
thought you were just
should withdraw
kidding,
and
but I like this.
gamble that shit.
Hell yeah.
Bet on black. Cash that out. Cash it out. Bet on black. You'll double your money if you get it.
So
Double green all the time.
Yep.
So I realized a cool thing as you're talking about like the schools is Ronald being a mascot that the kids have seen. I think it's cool how you use that trust with the kids to teach them good things. Because I used to remember we had a thing called Safety City, and T and Tamara Mowry of Sister taught me safety going across the street. So I love that it wasn't just to promote McDonald's, but it was to teach good, valuable lessons.
Yeah, one of the most rewarding things to me was just crazy. I remember one time going to the McDonald's, and there was a girl who probably was 19, 20 years old. And she said, just like you were saying, did you ever go to such and such school? And I did. And she goes, do you remember a show about recycling? And I said, yeah, reducing, reusing, recycling, reduce. And I went through and she said,
Did
oh my God.
see me yell at you in the crowd?
No, she
How
said.
do you remember 12,000 shows?
Well,
I was like, yeah, I remember you. What happened? Okay.
she said she always remembered not only that show, but over the years she had saw a safety show, and she always went out of her way to do certain things that we taught in recycling. And in relationship to fire safety, stop, drop, and roll, she goes, they used to teach all this stuff and we always heard it and remembered it. But she goes, I always remember the nuances that you taught because you did it with magic and it made me remember it.
Oh,
and it was
cool.
like, that's part of the thing that I don't think people appreciated, that mixing the messages with magic in a fun way and telling a story really helped the community.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because I remember stuff that is engaging and fun, and those are the ones I remember from school.
What's your magician stage name?
I have always been going. I've always been going by Magic by Randy Kalin. It's just that simple. I just go by my own name. There's so many people who have stage names and stuff, and I know many of them, but I've just always used my own name.
I think we're going to have to do a poll or something. We're going to have to get you a new one.
So let me throw this in there. So this one is from Yogurt Pretzels 85. What magicians do you idolize? What is your opinions on Houdini, Amazing Jonathan, Chris Angel, and Rudolph Valentino? I don't know if he was a magician or not, but okay.
You might be talking about the masked magician. So. But I don't know them all well, but I know them. I mean, first off, Houdini was just an expert in marketing. I mean, how long he's been dead? Almost, I think it's 94 years, almost 100 years, and yet that's somebody people, when you ask to name a magician, somebody they still name. So although he did escapes and stuff, he was definitely a magician. But it's interesting because so many people, when they do escapes out of straitjackets and stuff, they say, hey, I'm going to escape faster than Houdini. But back in the time, Houdini didn't escape fast. He often, did it, took a long time to do it. That was part of his presentation. And it wasn't until later years that he would do it in front of people because he found that they were fascinated by it, and he actually started doing it. But originally he would do it behind a curtain, you know. And the reason he started doing it upside down was really, if my recollection is correct, there's a book by a gentleman by the name of Bill Kalush, is like David Blaine's one of his best friends, and he is a writer and a magician and just a very smart gentleman. Well, he collected all kinds of stuff and wrote a book called Making of America's First Superhero. And he found all kinds of nuances that, as much as we all know about Houdini, he found things we didn't know. And one of them was when Houdini was traveling, doing his magic shows, one time this one young man who was fascinated by it asked him if he could bring him, come home and get a home-cooked dinner, because back in the days, it wasn't like the restaurants were all over. So he said, sure. They went there, and the mom cooked this great dinner for him. And he said, can I show you something? Well, they went upstairs, and the kid laid on the floor, and his mom had tied his feet up and hoisted him upside down. And he goes, I give this to you, I as an ode to you when you escape out of your straitjackets. And he hung upside down. And Houdini said, well, that's just crazy, but I love it. And he said, can I use that? And he said, well, sure. And then Houdini started doing it upside down, hoisted in various places. But as for others, you mentioned Chris Angel. Chris has had some notoriety for getting in fights with some different employees and stuff. I have met him a number of times in various places, and he has been nothing but just genuinely nice to me. I have had some drinks with him in Las Vegas a couple of times, and seen him in other, there's groups of magicians that get together at conventions. And he has, even in his entourage one time, he was going somewhere, I guess between TV specials, and I had saw him and said, hey, is there any way I could get a picture with you? And he said, sure. And somebody from his entourage said, hey, we have to go. And he goes, the man just wants a picture. Could you just wait? And he stopped. He didn't have to. He could have gone. But so I think he oftentimes gets a bad rap. I know he has donated a lot of his magic sets to children's charities and done a lot of things to help people as well. David Blaine is another man. When he first got in magic, I kind of thought he was a little kooky and crazy and was not a big fan. Over the years, I have met him a number of times. The last time I saw him, I think, was about a year ago in Orlando, and he had done just what you've probably seen, some what we call geek magic, where he sewed his lips together and pulled out a card. And I probably was just about 2 or 3 feet from him. But when you wanted to talk to him, he would answer all your questions. He would talk to you, get pictures. Couldn't have been more kind. So a lot of these people get bad rapports. I think it's because many times they're being rushed away to an interview or to another show, and people think they're being rude, but
they're busy.
They're just trying to get to they're just trying to get to their next event.
That's cool.
I'd say a lot of them probably aren't being rude as these people who want autographs and they're salty because they don't.
Oh
get
yeah,
it.
you know what? Amazing Jonathan. He's another one. I mean, he has cracked me up many times. I don't know if you know. I mean, he probably should have died a few years ago. As a matter of fact, he was predicting his own death. He even had his picture taken with the Grim Reaper standing right next to him, getting ready to take him away because he had cancer and stuff, and he just didn't think he was going to survive. But he did, and now he's slowly starting to perform more regular shows again. But he's another one. I mean, he is pretty outspoken, not afraid to say things, but I wouldn't say that he's rude. He's not in a bad way. He's just very opinionated, not afraid to speak his mind. And if somebody says something, he's like, yeah, screw you, because I disagree with you. But he's not meaning it to be rude to you. He's just like, I just disagree with you. You're wrong. And he just states his point as it is. And I think it's kind of refreshing, actually. But again, I found most of these people that are pretty successful, in most cases, they're pretty genuine. One person that you had missed is a gentleman by the name of David Copperfield.
Oh, yeah,
Probably had the most TV specials. I was lucky enough. One of his lead manager and stuff actually came from St. Louis, a gentleman by the name of Chris Kenner. He grew up in our local magic clubs and eventually went there. And he's worked with David probably for about 20 years, and sometimes would fill in part of the show to fill in certain things if they needed to buy time for something. But David Copperfield is the most successful magician in history. He truly has $1 billion. He is the most successful entertainer, definitely in the country, possibly the world. And when I say that, I don't say that lightly. I mean, he sold more tickets than any concert, any Broadway show, any musician. You know, even when you're talking the Beatles and everything, all his time, he has sold more tickets. And when you think of very successful entertainers and actors and whatever, you know, in most cases you're thinking 200-400 million, maybe 500. He has $1 billion. He has about 7 to 10 islands that he owns. He has the most expensive house in Las Vegas at the tune of $26 million.
I did read some of that. There was a list of like the top 20 entertainers in Copperfield, especially after being at the MGM for however long he's been doing that.
Yeah, he was originally at Caesars. When Caesars tore it down to build the Coliseum, where all those shows are, his shows slowed down, and he wanted to do it, and MGM offered him a theater, and he took it. So he's been there now for, I don't even know how many years. I'll say 15 or whatever, but he's been in Vegas many years. He had, I think, 20 TV specials. He's traveled the world numerous times. He's had so many awards, and I don't think he has a postage stamp. I think you have to have died to be able to get a postage in America, but he has postage stamps in other countries.
Wow.
So,
what are your views of Penn and Teller?
I love them. I have been lucky enough to be in at Penn's house. One of the guys that really is responsible for making Ronald what he was is one of Penn's best friends. And I get along with this guy really well, and being a magician. We were at St. Lucia one time, and Penn and Teller, sure enough, come out. And so I got invited, and I had dinner with Penn and Teller, and it was just a great experience. And then I met them in other places, and in Vegas. Do you remember the film, The Aristocrats?
Mm-hmm.
The Aristocrats, for people that don't know, there's a joke, and it's a very simple joke about a family, and, well, it gets kind of crass. And comedians all over the country, to kind of spoof each other, they have their own little bent on how crass it gets. And Penn took this joke and filmed comedians of all levels. It's just the joke over and over again, and made a movie about it. And when he premiered it at his house, somehow I got invited, and so I was there with him and James Randi and a bunch of other people, and it was kind of an interesting experience. So I wouldn't say that I am
close with
friends.
Them.
Yeah, but close. But I'm familiar enough that they know who I am. When they see me, they know. You know, Penn is just a brilliant man. I mean, he has a blog every Sunday called, I believe it's Sunday School or something.
Yeah. And, his podcast and everything. Yeah.
Yes, and he you know. The man is just brilliant. His logic is hard to argue. And Teller is also brilliant. Teller
is so weird watching a documentary and seeing him talk in it.
Yeah, because I remember someone saying that, like, the greatest trick is that Teller's marketing, that he doesn't talk, that our minds ignore whenever we hear him talk.
Right. I have a couple of, they have their own books together, but he is a historian, and did some amazing, great work on magic, and I've got them. I got one of the last copies that they had and got them autographed from him. But he is really well known as the historian of magic, and they're very supportive of each other. And although they're very dear friends, they live in two different worlds, so to speak. And Teller, loves the history of magic, loves art and other things and classics. And Penn is just kind of a guy that has money for toys and likes to play and wants to do things that people say, if they say you can't do it, he's going to do it. But they're both I've never seen them, either one of them, ever, and I've met them and numerous times and seen them in various situations. I've never seen them rude or offensive to anybody else.
That's
ever.
Cool.
Yeah. I still remember meeting him after one of the shows. I met both of them, and after the long hours that they were working, probably flying in to do that show from somewhere else, they were both just so gracious, and I won't ever forget that, because taking time to talk with their audience.
Yeah, he after each show, both in Vegas and when they come to St. Louis. I think the last time they were in St. Charles at the what's the school out there? There was a theater out there. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway.
You mean in St. Charles, Missouri?
Yeah, they did a show there just about 2 years ago. They come to St. Louis occasionally. They did one in Washington U about 15 years ago, but they occasionally still do touring shows. But when they do, they always come out and they not only meet people for pictures, but they will sign your program, sign if you have a book or something that you want signed. They take the time to do it for each and every person until everybody is satisfied. If it takes hours, that's what they do. They are just amazing. They have never lost the ability to appreciate that they can't exist and do what they do if it weren't for their audience. And on the inside, when they do stuff, people would never believe how much work and time they will go to do something to create an effective illusion. Many, many years ago, if you remember anything about them, they did a magic trick with David Letterman, and they ended up with a hat on his desk. Mm-hmm. And the trick was over. I remember that,
yeah.
And they said, and pick it up and hand me my hat or something. It was just off the cuff because the trick was over. And he handed it up, and they had all these cockroaches come up.
And he was so pissed, David Letterman was.
Because it's interesting. Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, Jimmy Fallon, other people, most people have a philosophy that if my show goes, or if my guest's show goes well, then my show goes well. So they want to create the best scenario. If you need a table, if you need a backstage, if you need a musician, they will go out of their way to get it for you so that you can create the best possible event for their audience. And by you being successful, it makes them successful. Mm-hmm. David Letterman, in my opinion, has a different philosophy. He doesn't necessarily want you to fail, but if you do, then he succeeded. And his style of logic was, well, I just got brownie points because everybody in my audience saw XYZ person mess up their thing. So if you were a magician, needed a table, he'd say, we have no tables. Or, you're going to have to do it right here in the corner and stuff. And he would have a corner, a camera right in front of him. And then, of course, he was on the side. So magicians learn to the best of their ability after watching other magicians not necessarily, do so well, make sure that they were prepared for anything and tried to work around it. Wow. But, I wouldn't say, I guess that's kind of a rude move, but it was just his philosophy. He's like, if you're really a magician, then do it. Then magish for me. But he goes, I'm not going to help you out. And but I think he does that with everybody. He might provide a session for, if you're a band and, he gives you an area, but if you need something special, it's like, hey, this is your gig, not mine.
That's cool. I mean, I always liked David Letterman. I didn't know that about him, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We got to get going, so we're getting a little past time.
Okay.
It's all good for me. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'd love to have you again on the show and talk more about things, if that's okay with you.
No, I'd be happy to. Definitely. You guys are fantastic. I mean, I'm just trying to answer questions as honestly as I can. I have nothing to hide. McDonald's has been very good to me. You guys have been very good to me. I know some people were fearful of clowns, but I loved what I did, and I did what I did I would visit kids in the hospital all the time and people in the community and did shows. And I think I was helping people out, was teaching kids in a fun, entertaining manner, leaving good messages. Right. Just that simple.
Darren, did you have anything?
Oh, he's like the Patch Adams.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah, and always trying to make people's day better. I love that.
Is there anybody in Twitch that's wanted to say anything or talk about anything or anything? Real quick.
Nope. Other than Tina, who said hi, Aaron.
Nice.
Hi, darling.
All right, Randy, where can we find you? Where can we anybody who's interested could look into what you were talking about and stuff like that, or even see a show?
Well, I mean, right now, just like entertainers across the country, I was supposed to headline the Missouri State Fair, but it got canceled, if you hadn't heard. Yeah. I think they're still going to try to have the husbandry things. So I would still do shows as myself. I did some today at a couple of schools with social distancing. But they're trying to work something out with the local libraries. I have a website that it's pretty empty right now. It's just called randykalinmagic.com. And it's pretty, just got a couple of pictures. If people have questions or they want to book me, I do a lot of corporate clients. I do a lot of high-end strolling for corporate clients and do things with the Ritz. I do things with Union Station. I've even done stuff with the Blues and the Cardinals and some other things. So I do a lot of close-up stuff, as Paulie has seen me do some stuff where he works and stuff. But I won an award a number of years ago for one of the best children's entertainers and stuff. And I take that with a grain of salt because there's so many. You'd happen to hit somebody at the right thing. But I love entertaining, period. And there's not too much on there where you can see me because still everything's closed, and every time I get something booked, they cancel it through September, October, and now I hear there's probably not going to be too many hired until maybe next year. So, but I'm always willing to perform.
Or somewhere else, you can always do some stuff. See if you can,
well, that's what
up some things, so to speak.
Have you been on a cruise ship? I feel like I've seen you before.
I have not. I do have a lot of friends that are on there. That are on different cruise ships and stuff. They're performing, and maybe someday will, as soon as schools and like I said, the libraries are talking to me about trying to do virtual shows. I did. If you go to Facebook, Kansas City Magic Showcase, they had a show with a guy by the name of Sal Piacente, one of the top casino experts in the world. And he and I are friends, and he was on the show, and I was the MC. So if you go look that up, you'll see me. I emceed. I did some linking rings and some other stuff. You'll see a few. We had a magician from Hawaii, one from Kentucky, one from Kansas, myself from St. Louis as the MC, and Sal from New York. But that might be the places you can see right now if you would like to see what I did and other things, and there's totally free. As for the libraries, we're working out dates and how they want to do it, so I'll probably end up doing it. It's nothing official, but because of the postponements, it probably won't, at the earliest, will be in August. So, because people are still fearful of having anybody do in-person magic.
Oh, yeah. COVID, it's a serious thing,
yeah.
All right.
So thank you all very much.
No, thank you. Thank you. We'll do our little quick. We'll do a little quick outro. You can hang out with us till the end if you want. You ready?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Frasley, what do you got going on for this evening?
So this evening, going to do some more WoW, do some mount runs, trying to see if I can still get that invincible to drop, and others, and plus you can combine and try to get me to drink water because Aaron's always trying to get me to drink.
Wait! Oh, you have water on tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you at 9. See you at 8:00, fucker.
Time to hydrate. So.
And Paul, are we doing after dark?
I didn't know.
We'll talk.
I was wondering if
you
guys were. Yeah, I'll give you a call. I thought you guys were talking about yesterday. I didn't know if you guys recorded or not because I fell asleep. But
no. I said if you would read the rest of my message, it said Tuesday or Wednesday, and you said that. Well, if you're awake, well, we can do it at 8:00. We don't have to do it at 10.
I think we should do it maybe at 8 and see how much we can hydrate Fraz again. So. All right, everybody, please go over to the miscellaneouspodcast.org, and if you see, it's right behind me, and my new nifty towel that was just we got from the podcast itself, the website. So please help support the show. And Aaron, the big Aaron's new stuff is all out now. I love that picture, dude. That's Norco did such an amazing job with that.
Yeah, I liked you slept on that cartoon look. It reminded me of like Bugs Bunny and Taz on that on those shirts in the 90s.
Yeah, it had like a Six Flags feel to it. I loved it. So in Aaron we trust. I love it. And so
you better.
So everybody, please check it all out. Check out Frazzlecast. Check everything out, and also check out the amazing Randy. How do we say it?
Randy Kalen.
Okay.
Randy Magic by Randy. Just that simple.
All right.
So randykalenmagic.com. But like I said, it's pretty empty right now because there's nothing going on.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night. Analysis, the analytics, and there's like 4 people in like 6 different counties. That's
what?
It. That's the only people that listen.
Just a what?
No, really. We got a good audience.
I know. I don't think any of them's going to tattle going, oh my God, we got to get a hold of McDonald's. We just met this McDonald guy.